Minigame collections and party games. I cannot get enough of them, whether they are good, bad or indifferent, and Garfield Lasagna Party is the latest one to grace my PlayStation. I grabbed this on PS4 with a PS5 upgrade, and I'll come to that later because there is definitely a difference between the two. Garfield Lasagna Party has 32 minigames in it, 4 characters, only the 4. Mind you, how many characters are there really in Garfield? I'm not too sure. It's been years since I've watched the cartoon. But the idea behind this is that you need to win as many minigames as possible to score as many points as possible and win the lasagna. Nom 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 nom. There's a couple of different modes that you can do it in, and I'll talk about just generally the mini-games first, because you can just dive in and pick mini-games and play them, and that's cool. And you can do it in like a quick round, where you have it like as groups of 8, 16, 24, 32, or you can just dive in and just pick games at random and just play until you want to stop, basically, and it will collate your points throughout those mini-games as you play, which is quite cool. There are AI bots with 3 different difficulties, and they can be quite decent on some of the games if you up the difficulty, which is quite cool. Most of the stuff that you'll see here is me playing against the AI bots, but they're on easy difficulty because I was going for L Platinum, which is basically win every minigame. Now, the minigames themselves are a variety of different types. So you've got some that are more rhythmic and you have to press the button at the right time. Some are fastest finger first, so that you have to like strike a pose, for example. But a lot of them revolve around aiming at something and then firing it. So this could be about firing pizzas into pizza oven kilns. So you maneuver around the target and then press the button to then kind of fire the pizza. There's another one around trying to shoot down balloons that will give you different points. So you'll be aiming the trajectory and doing that. There's a fishing mini game which is very similar. There's another one where you are using a catapult to try and lob pizzas on top of a dog kennel. That one's odd because it kind of has an arrow that spins around a little bit that you have to try and work out exactly what's the right time to press the throw, as much as it works like a hammer throw basically, because you're spinning around an analog stick so that you can then bring up the power and then fire it off. But it's again a variation of aiming of stuff. Then there's a selection of games that are like battles. So there'll be ones where you're on top of a snowball trying to ram people off, just like most sumo things, trying to push people off the platforms. And there's a variety of different ones like that. Then there's dodging ones where there's massive bulldogs that are running across the same environment that you have to try and move out of the way of. Or you can push your opponent into their path and then they lose a life. And then there's some interesting ones where it's split screen, but you're in a 3D environment. And some of these are like a snowball fight. There's another one where you've got a hoover and you have to hoover up flies and spiders in your house. There's another one where you've got to find a variety of different coloured objects. And the first one to find all 3 of your objects inside the vets. Again, another 3D space. Then allows you to win. But because you're in split screen mode, because it's implying that everyone's going to be playing locally, it's gone traditional old school, which I quite like actually. And it's not gone from this like top-down perspective. There are a couple of modes that do have a top-down perspective, notably one where you're running around a pizzeria trying to pass a clock to someone, or another one where you're trying to hold on to something for as long as possible. TikTok, I think, is the one where you're trying to get rid of the clock. And you have to kind of, like, doors will lock behind you and so on and so forth, so you can kind of hide and stay safe for a few seconds. And they all kind of play okay. Nothing here is massively like a big standout. Nothing is absolutely terrible, though, either. It's just kind of in the middle. And this is the big thing with Garfield Lasagna Party. Nothing here is offensive, but nothing here is making me go, oh God, that's an absolutely stunning minigame. Let me play that again, either. There's a couple of interesting ones. Some of my favourites included the one which I mentioned around the pizza kiln. There's another one about rolling up snow to have the biggest snowball, but you can also roll over others and kind of polish them off. One of the best mini games, and this is going to sound really weird, is the artist one, where you have to follow and draw a line of painting on a wall and stay as close to the line as possible to get 100%, because the controls aren't the best. But like it's really precise and you have to be very careful with it, whilst also staying inside the camera view as well. And that sounds like the weirdest minigame to be like, it's really good, but it's one of those ones where you're like, oh, I've only got 96%. How could I fail on this? There's also another cool one where you're building up ingredients of your pizza, but you then have to run into all of the different ingredients that are underneath, like chef, like hat things. I forgot what the steel things are called. But you have to you can keep your eye on the other players whilst they're opening up their chef bits and going, okay, theirs is over there, we'll go for that next type thing. So, whilst you can play through these 32 mini-games and just play them and how you want, you can also go into race mode, which isn't really technically a race. It's going around a board, rolling dice, which can also help you buy either power-ups for yourself or power-ups for your dice so that you can then alter what your moves are to get additional lasagna to then win the game at the end. So it doesn't necessarily come down purely to you winning mini-games all the time to win the overall game. It's a combination of that, but also your tactics on the board. What I will say, though, is that the board game version of this is so slow because on every roll of the dice, everyone's given the opportunity to throw in one of their power-ups to alter the number of the dice, which then, because everyone's got so many power-ups and it's so generous with it, slows the game down to a crawl, but then starts to mean that your own dice roll doesn't really matter because everyone else is busy affecting what you've done. So you can't really be tactical. It's too much power for everyone else and not enough for you. So it feels stilted in the wrong direction for me of chaos. There's also only one map, which is a bit of a shame for that too. Now, the last thing I want to say on this is the difference between the PS4 and PS5 versions. I would recommend, now I bought this physically on PS4 because it was really, really cheap from thegamecollection.net, which is where I get quite a lot of my games, not sponsored, but they're generally cheap on there. And if it's a pre-order, it always arrives on the day of release, which is great. However, the PS4 version is struggling with frame rate so hard that it's a real struggle to be quite precise on some of the things. Although I still managed it, it did annoy me sometimes that the frame rate was just chugging along at like 15, it felt like, for the entire experience. PS5 version, smooth as baby's bottom, worked perfectly fine, absolutely the superior experience. No changes in the actual minigames or anything like that at all, but it just felt like it wasn't going to crash at any moment and therefore was much more enjoyable to play. And whilst, are you going to be like, oh my god, we've got to play Garfield Lasagna Party now, that is the ultimate party game? No. But there is nothing here that's offensive at all. This is a very solid 6 out of 10. Not going to throw it away and be snooty over it, but equally it's not going to be in my top tier either. So yeah, that's it. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.